it, but we'll see. Go ahead and set, we set that one, we just got to set it up for him because it doesn't look like it's working right. I don't know what is. See, look, this is what they did with Councilman Clark's. Look, network error.
I had that, but once I hit refresh and did it again.
Yeah, I've been doing refresh and it came up network error.
Oh.
Go ahead and set his.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the April Public Works Committee meeting. Call to order.
Is your mic on?
Good afternoon. Welcome to the April Public Works meeting, which we will call to order. And I would ask committee members if there are any items from the consent agenda they would like to pull and discuss. No, seeing none, if I could get a motion to approve the balance.
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. This will be a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you. Good start. Let's move to our general agenda. G1, Clark.
Item G1, resolution authorizing an agreement with RATP Dev USA for transit operations and maintenance services for the Winston-Salem Transit Authority.
Thank you. Mr. Fansler, all yours.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I appreciate the time today. So I'll just take a minute to introduce this item briefly. The item before you really is to award the next transit provider for the city of Winston-Salem. As you all are aware, we offer our transit authority via contractual services that the Winston-Salem DOT manages. So I have prepared a slide deck that if you'll allow, I'll go over. And then in the middle, I'll introduce our contractor, selected contractor, who is also here this afternoon, and have them give some brief remarks as well. But I want to highlight the core team and transportation, along with Assistant City Manager, Mr. King, who've been really instrumental, myself, our financial manager, Tia, and then I'll give a lot of credit to Kelly, who's really done a lot of great work in our shop to manage this to where we are today. So bear with me. We'll go through these as briefly as we can. So a little bit about the history of and an introduction of what is WISTA. Founded in 1968, the Transit Authority provides fixed route and paratransit services in the city and the county. And really, this current model that we're in started in 2010. So since then, we've had these services provided via a contract with Transdev, which is the incumbent contractor. And the city's role in that is the managing oversighting partner managing that contract for those services that Transdev is offering. So from there, obviously, our fixed route system has currently 45 buses in its fleet. We operate 31 fixed routes. That is about 1,700 bus stop locations on the street and in our public rights-of-way around town. And then FY22-23 ridership data does indicate we had about 1.55 million riders last fiscal year. And then if you flip the script on our paratransit side, the TransAid service, we have 40 demand response vehicles that are in fleet today. That does offer a door-to-door service. So just imagine it's the door of where you're getting picked up from to the door of where you're going to. That service is what our paratransit service offers today. And then last year, fiscal year, we did have about 160,000 of those trips provided through that service. So moving forward through quarter three, hopefully that's showing on your screen. Just disregarded the fiscal cliff there, or the cliff. That is we don't have Q4 data. But just DOT humor there. But we do have the trends. This is a by day, operating day kind of snapshot. So we're averaging about between 5,000 and 5,500 passengers per weekday, okay? And then we're averaging about 35 to 4,000 on Saturday and about 1,500 on Sunday for fixed route. On the paratransit, TransAid side, about 550 to 600 passengers per weekday, and in the 200 to 300 range on the weekends. But you can see we're pretty consistent, pretty flat through the calendar year. And if this projection continues through Q4, we're on pace to offer about 1.65 million trips. So we're trending in the right direction, and so we're finally starting to see some response and ridership growth coming out of the pandemic. And we'll talk more about that briefly. So I wanted to just highlight kind of an overview of our service delivery model. We have 31 fixed routes, as we mentioned, and 1,700 stops, kind of see the coverage throughout the city. We're trying to do a better job internally with documenting and mapping our resources. So, you guys in this body, we did have an item that we brought through this committee previously that talked about our service standards and our amenity standards, and we're trying to do a little bit better job graphically in indicating where we have those type of accommodations on the surface and on the field, and trying to show that here through our 31 routes. I'll take a pause. Are we good?
Dana? Go ahead, we're a little technical aside here.
That's a lot of information.
A lot of information.
She didn't update her.
We have network errors right now, so it's just something I'm trying to work through. So that's what's going on. That's why I've been over there working.
Okay, the information will be on the screen.
Question, Jeff, while we're pausing.
Sure.
Our fixed routes, the 1,700 stops we have, how many of those are sheltered?
So right now, that number is kind of hard to quantify because we're still inventorying all those stops, but it's about 80 or so that have full shelter, somewhere in that ballpark.
80 out of the 100, out of the 1,700.
That's correct. Yeah, and truth be told, Councilmember Larson, less than 150 of those 1,700 stops account for over 70% of the ridership. So you can understand, we're trying to put these where they're most warranted, and we brought forth an item to talk about these standards of where we treat stops based on the ridership that they have. And so less than 150 of these actually indicate 2/3 or more of the ridership. So we'll start there with rolling these shelters out.
We need about 70 more shelters.
And we have some in inventory, then we have ongoing efforts to deploy those. It's just a matter of getting to that point.
Great.
Yep. So moving on, let's talk a little bit about the current contract that the city manages. So you'll hear this distinction today of a management contract versus a full turnkey operations contract, which is essentially what we're moving towards. Okay, currently we have what we call in the industry a management style contract, which essentially the incumbent responsibility, the current contractor's responsibility is to really provide a general manager and manage the operations through their management or their model, right? And offer some of that training to facilitate that. That's at a high level the majority of what the city is currently paying for, with, as you noticed by the slide, a lot of the other operating and day-to-day expense, time, resource is passed through to the city, with a big piece being the insurance, the claims, the payroll, and some of the major procurement elements of the operation direct pass through to the city. So you can imagine that there's a lot in this model that requires a heavy lift from the few players that wear these badges. And so this is a big thing. And you notice by my little graphic there, that's a lot of risk to the city, not just for staff, but for just the liability of the way we do business with this many vehicles in service. So all that will take a change with this new service model that we'll talk more about in just a moment. Along those lines, Mr. Chair, I just want to highlight, here's a snapshot of the kind of the overarching problem. In other words, here's just a quick glimpse of how many open POs we currently have, and this is not all. It doesn't include all the software, all the amenities, and all the different types of service contracts we do have. But just to give you a general idea, this is what our staff dealing with daily, all the provisionals, all the invoicing, all the tracking, the financial reporting to facilitate these. And this is everything from bus maintenance supplies to how we do pest control or cut the grass. So it's a number of different treatments across the gamut to operate the service. So where are we today? Let's talk a little bit about the solicitation process of why we're here. Ultimately, what you're going to be approving moving through this process and what we're talking about today, which is selecting and approving this new vendor and contractor. So we had our FDA triennial audit, and there was a couple of findings from that audit that we found to be a little bit deficient. Obviously, number one is oversight And that's everything from oversight of the current contractor, oversight from our subrecipients, oversight from FTA. There's just a lot in the management style contract with just a few people trying to oversee that. So those were some of the findings, as well as the overall procurement strategy. I mentioned early on in my presentation that we've had this current contract since 2010. And that's an FTA no-no. And so from that, it was kind of real clear to us, we've got to pause. And they actually were pretty clear to us that they gave us some pretty hard deadlines to meet. I commend staff for hitting every one of those throughout this effort. And that's why we're here today, because of those FTA requirements. And if we weren't in compliance and meeting those required deadlines and producing where we are through this process, then there's that risk of retention of funds, which helps subsidize the service that we provide. So what did we do? Through the work that our team has with ongoing efforts with our on-call consultants, HDR, we contracted with them to further assist us with this RFP process, knowing we had to kind of go out to get a new vendor on board. You kind of see highlighted there a general timeline of the effort since last fall, where this kind of really took off. So I want to pause here, because I think there's not a whole lot of words on this slide, but there's a tremendous amount of effort across the entire organization, across many departments, across the leadership team throughout the organization that really came together to reimagine and to put a vision for what WISTA could be. And I have to really commend the staff and the commitment to do that. Obviously, I've been here a decade and it's never been done. And it sounds like we haven't done a comprehensive look like that in our history of Transit Authority. So I want to commend staff for doing that. I also want to highlight the reading room, a massive database of our fleet, our assets, our software, our inventory, all of the contracts, all of the personnel, the collective bargaining agreement, just a tremendous lift to get all of the documentation compiled so we can have a competitive solicitation process to allow the proposers to access all that they would need to put a competitive bid together. So I commend once again staff for diving into that at the leadership and the guidance from our consultant, but also at just the elbow grease, so to speak, of staff digging into this. And so I'm really appreciative of the work they did. One of the things I want to highlight here, because it was tremendously beneficial to this process, was to do some peer agency review. So we were real deliberate with going out to solicit resources that have been through this same process. And I highlight there Durham, Raleigh, and even as far as Phoenix. So not only did we engage, their drafts or their documents, but we actually engaged the leaders in the organization at those agencies. We got them on the phone. We spent hours with them talking about what their best practice was, what to look out for, what to do better, and how to maintain our FTA compliance throughout the whole process. And so in doing so, I think that really set the framework for getting this right and having us to receive some of those competitive bids. So we're thankful for those partners in the industry and their resources that they offered our team to be able to get this right. And then obviously we moved forward with the draft RFP, working with our consultant, all the feedback we gained from those interviews. We engaged them and we took their drafts, we took their information, and we drafted the RFP. And then ultimately, lastly, there is the pre-proposal open house, where we basically provided opportunity for potential proposers, to come into our shop, to tour our facilities, to have a presentation by staff and our consultant HDR on all things WISTA, to really pull the curtain back and understand how we do business here and how maybe their industry best practice could benefit our service delivery model here in Winston-Salem. So that was a big undertaking, a few words, but I want to spend just a moment to explain how we got there. So moving forward, proposals were due March 1st. We opened those, and we did receive a couple of competitive proposals that I'll highlight in just a moment. Some of the key focus there, we were looking for someone to deliver best-in-class service. We wanted to know what we're doing wrong and how to fix that. And really to take a look at revitalizing hiring, training. You obviously are aware we're still struggling to return to night service. That's been a constant request in our community. How do we do that? You notice that 181,000 vehicle revenue hours, right, that we wanted them to put a price on. That is assuming full service, night service included. So we were clear in our solicitation that our expectation for this contract is to return night service. And I think that everything we're doing through this process and the contractor we have to recommend today get us to that point. And then we want to just meet best practice in our operations and through service planning, through delivery, and all the above. Some of the key contract elements, this is a 5-year contract, option for 2 years. So the financial model that we'll talk more at the Finance Committee meeting goes into those details of that potential 7-year term contract. And then everything is FTA compliant. That was clear, spelled out in the RFP solicitation, was that our expectation was that since we receive FTA funds, you're going to operate the system meeting those guidelines. Some of the evaluation criteria, obviously we were looking at the qualifications and experience. We're looking at key personnel, organizational structure. Want to make sure that the folks that you bring into our city have done this and can do this, and we can rely on them to carry our system through the 7-year term. And then their overall approach, right? We recognize some of our deficiencies obviously with 1.5 million riders, we know there's opportunity for growth there. And we wanted to dive into their approach to services to spearhead that and maybe bolster some of that ridership. And then ultimately how they view safety, how we keep our buses safe, how we keep our passengers, our staff, our drivers, our operators, our facilities safe for the general public. Some of the key differentiators, and I know I'm speaking fast trying to get through it, but we're looking at customer service, we're looking at marketing, and really their plan to engage. If you spent much time on the WISTA website, there's obviously room for growth, and we're excited about what the contractor that we're recommending can do in that space to encourage additional ridership, to be a little bit more user-friendly, maybe some route planning for folks that need that logistically in their day. And then the biggest thing, and I want to just highlight this specifically, we're moving from a management style contract to an operation style contract. And so we needed a firm and an agency that really understands that transition, how to take the city's current contracts to migrate those over to the responsibility of the contractor, and someone that has done this. And so that was a big part of how we were looking at this and why we are landing where we have today, was the ability of the firm that we're recommending to transition us in that space. Just a general scoring outline and part of the rubric. This is pretty standard in the industry. Outstanding being, if you kind of think of a 5-point weight, that being a number 5. But we go outstanding, exceeds, meets, marginally acceptable, and then of course unacceptable. And I'm happy to say both firms that we received proposals from were strong. They do this nationwide. They do this globally, and so these were a lot of details, a lot of very intense conversations to score these. But just to want to highlight the methodology that we use to do such. And finally, I wanted to just take a moment and summarize the 2 proposals. We did receive 2 proposals, one from a company called We Drive You and the second from RATP Dev. And you notice the scoring summary here, and you notice how we compared those against those qualifications and criteria that I mentioned just a moment ago. And as you can see, RATP Dev, circled there in red, was the selected contractor, and really highlighted there, we want to just take a look at that kind of bottom line, the transition. They really kind of stepped forward and proved to the city that, and really gave us a level of comfort that we need through the transition. And we're going to be migrating employees, migrating contracts, and we want someone that has done this and done this regionally here in North Carolina to come in and solve this problem for us, and I think it's what we've got. So it's my pleasure at this time. I'd like to introduce Ibrahima Touré. He is the representative from RATP Dev. He's going to go through a few slides, and then I'll come back up and I'll close this out with just a few other final remarks. Is that okay, Mr. Chairman?
I'm still trying to grapple with the DOT humor. But yes, that'd be great. Thanks.
If that's where we hang up today, that'd be fine with me. Ibrahima, you have the floor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you, Jeff, for the introduction.
Good afternoon.
Ibrahima Touré, Chief Development Officer for RATP Dev USA. Okay, great. This is just to give you a little bit of information on the company, our presence from the U.S. perspective. We're a global company, as Jeff mentioned. We're in 16 countries and in 5 continents. So in the U.S., we have over 34 contracts here in the U.S. As you can see, North Carolina is our biggest territory in the U.S. This slide is very important because when you look at the stars, Durham, Raleigh, Wake, Asheville Transit, we converted all of these contracts from a management contract to an operating contract, as Jeff mentioned. One of the most important things here is really how you navigate through the transition and how you basically transition the employees and establish a culture of safety and quality, which is very important in this transition. Our service delivery model is really based on hands-on, visible, and collaborative approach. So our general manager, who's here with me today, Bruce, Bruce is going to really come in from day one, from the transition with the corporation help, to establish our culture. What is it like to work for RATP Dev? What is it like to work for WISTA in general? And we understand that there are many employees who this is their lives. This is what they know. They've been here for a very long time. So we want to make sure that we free up Bruce and making sure that Bruce can focus on the employees. And this is why we're able to really focus on transition in terms of corporation. So the corporate support is going to be highly focused on transition. We've done a lot of transition. As you can see, we've done Greensboro, Durham, Wake, Raleigh. And just as a side note, Raleigh was just voted as the System of the Year by the state. So, and this is just after a year and a half working with the client. I mean, this is a very exciting day for us, and we're all celebrating. So hopefully in a couple of years, we can celebrate the same thing for WISTA as well. One of the key success factor in terms of our transition is really having a dedicated resource. Ken Fisher is our transition manager. He's done a lot of transitions. He's done all of these transitions, Wake, Raleigh, Durham, and he knows and he learns from this. At this point, we've done so many transitions from management to operating contract. We understand the challenges. It's not easy. It's not easy. It's not gonna, no transition is perfect, but you learn from it. Every single transition we can, use those lesson learned to perfect the next one. The other thing is really transparency and communication. As a company, we really take pride of how we communicate with our client, the transparency level. So all the transition items will be available to Jeff and Kelly as well, so they can follow the transition with us as we go. Here is Ken. The one and only. We joke around with Ken, but he's been in the industry over 42 years. He was a senior executive for this company. He was a GM. So this is what he likes to do now, and this is what he does very, very well. Ken led Raleigh, Wake, Durham, and all those management contract transitions. One of the key things here for Ken is, at this point he has engineered the transition process down to 200 plus executable items. So he knows this is what he does. He knows this, and he not only brings the operation knowledge, he also done pricing. So he's done different things in the industry. And again, you'll have full access to Monday.com. That's the system that we use, and it's very intuitive and very easy to use. So our relationship will really start with a great transition, and that's really critical. And with Ken's help, with the lesson learned, the organization focus, we'll be able to accomplish that. But after that, we need to make sure we have a strong team. With Bruce's leadership, he's a 20-year veteran, U.S. Army veteran. He lives in the community. He understands the community, currently works for Greensboro Transit Authority. So we put together a team. With Bruce's leadership, we think we can really, on day one, come in and slowly work the existing team and trying to get them into the RATP Dev culture. And again, our focus is really bring the service quality back up to what your expectation is and restore the service to full service. You can see Steve Scherer. Steve is here with me today. Steve is the regional VP for operations. So after contract, everything is set. After transition, even through transition, Steve will be also very critical representative of the company. So Steve will oversee this contract from a corporate perspective, working directly with Bruce and Kelly and Jeff. Robert is here with me. Robert is our client relations VP, and also Robert is part of my team as business development VP. Robert's role is very clear. I don't think we have this in any of our competitors' staffing matrix, because Robert, once we win the contract, we're not leaving. We're going to be on the ground. Robert will still be here to help Steve on a day-to-day basis in terms of what is not working, what's working, so we can kind of adjust and make sure we deliver our promises. So we have a very strong team. not only strong in terms of transit, but they bring diversity in terms of ideas, different industries they worked in. And we also have those two Army veterans that are also a critical part of our proposal. This is a pillar of our proposal. We want to take care of our employees. So once you take care of the employees, they'll take care of your customers. That's really our philosophy. So we come in today, day one, we want to make sure we understand the employees, where they're going. We already talked to the union, so we will advance in that process to make sure that we take care of the employee. Because if we don't take care of the employees, this is not going to work. So this is exactly how we're going to go through the process. The retention has to be high in order to really deliver our promise of restoring the service. And once we have a great startup, making sure we have our local team who are dedicated and will be in place, talking to the employees, making sure we establish that baseline, make sure the employees are taken care of. We have to focus on continuous improvement, improving the system efficiency. These are things that we've done in Raleigh, we're doing in Durham today. One of the ways we do it is basically deploy tools. One of the tools, OptiBus, is one that basically manages the vehicles on the road and manages the drivers. That's where the efficiency is. In our business, majority of money is spent on labor. So if you manage that, the rest is going to be easier. We also look at the safety in Lytx. Lytx is a camera system that basically monitors the driver behavior and driving, and it basically helps the driver. So after their shift is over, they can come talk to someone and say, okay, how did I do? It helps them really be a better driver. I started as a driver in this industry, and I know how critical, safety is. This is one of the most difficult jobs in our industry, being a driver. So the more tools we can give them, the better off the driver is. I won't go through all of them, but the last one is the dashboard. So this is really for, as part of our commitment to transparency and making sure we help each other, because this is a teamwork. We will work with the staff, provide them access to our dashboard. And this dashboard is customized to our needs. So, for example, if Jeff wants to see KPI 1 for certain things, we will develop that so he can see that. We'll monitor it together, and we try to develop action plans so that we can meet our goal. The last slide is really, these are kind of, we're trying to figure out, this was the most difficult slide for me, because trying to figure out what are the value added? It's a lot, but these are some of the programs and tools that we're offering. For example, we move people. This is a community engagement program we have. Our marketing director on day one will sit down with the staff, the employees, work through the community, find out what is it that we need to do to bring the community on board, increase ridership, help the system, customer experience be improved. So it is a lot of work. It's a heavy lift. But the good thing here is we've done it before several times. We learn our lessons. We're not a perfect company. We're not claiming to be, but we have learned a lot of lessons that we can also share with the team here. And the last thing I'll leave you with is our proposal include all these items. It is also part of our pricing, so it's no additional cost to the agency. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we want to ask questions now, or you want to finish up?
I have just a few more slides. If you like, I'll just finish these up. Yep. Just note, I appreciate, you heard a lot of VP and leaders here from our contractors, so I appreciate your team standing up and representing well today. So in closing, and we'll spend some more time looking at this at the Finance Committee meeting, but just wanted to highlight the financial overview, taking a look back. And this graph is kind of hard to interpret because of the economy of scale, but, obviously, from FY19 through 2021, 22, COVID took a tremendous impact on ridership from about 2.5–3 million riders, and down to 2022 at our lowest point, where we were just about 1.5 million. And you can see we wanted to show this where we can see the rebound, and so we are projected to have that ridership grow, as I mentioned earlier, and also You can also see, though, but in doing so, you see operating costs continue to rise with just the cost of operating our fleet. So just a quick overview summary there. One thing I wanted to highlight, though, given what you just heard, Winston-Salem DOT manages WISTA as still the second lowest cost per operating hour in the industry in North Carolina, and this is through 2022. So you can see that we're still operating a very lean system. Now, what we want to do is to figure out how to operate lean and put more folks on the buses. And I think we've got the right team to help us do that. And so we're still traveling the same amount of miles or hours, but we want to make sure we're doing that efficiently, but also efficiently carrying more people. But I'm happy to report that we're operating a lean, even in the time of this high inflationary period that we're going through. You see some of these peer agencies which are tremendously more expensive in operating on a per hour basis. We'll spend some more time with the Finance Committee talking about this, just highlighting the fact that this is a 5-year term through FY '29. There's a lot here of operating costs. It's broken out for the total contract cost at about $27 million, $28 million the first year, escalating through the term, which is per the contract. They do have that ability. So as we go through this contract, if things go well, we choose to activate those 2 option years. The contract potential is just over $218 million for the 7-year term. And we're moving forward with that recommendation ultimately through the Finance Committee to award that contract to not exceed that $218 million for the 7-year term. Just a couple of final thoughts. We spent a lot of time talking about management versus the full operation. That's what we're doing today. We've solicited for a firm to help us do that, right? What does that allow us to do? And here's what I want to mention. That allows staff to stop managing all these other city supplemented contracts, to stop doing the day-to-day operational piece that occupies so much time, and to get back to transit planning, to get back to making sure that we are oversight and managing the contract from a FDA compliance perspective, to focus on how to grow our ridership, to work with the contractor for those marketing campaigns. And to really, as I mentioned earlier, we've already brought this committee some some security, some code of conduct changes. We've already brought this body changes to our service and amenity standards. That allows staff to go do those things, to implement those things, to enforce those things, and to really dive back into transit planning and transit resources where our staff needs to stay, and not how to operate a transit system. So this effort today is to refocus that effort should we get awards. So why? Why are we doing this? There's a lot of things I could say, and as I was preparing this, I thought about maybe an interactive slide to pop these in one at a time for some dramatic effect, but really, we're trying to minimize risk. We're trying to enhance the rider experience. We're trying to promote the service expansion. At a minimum, we want to improve service delivery for staff, for our users, for our operators, for our passengers, all the above. And I think this contract model does that. So I'll pause there and I'll ask, is there any questions? You've heard me ramble on now for too long. Is there any questions that you can have of me, of my team, of the contractor? But I do, Mr. Chair, appreciate your time going through that today.
Thank you for the report. I'm sure we're all going to have questions. I do want to start out. Mayor Pro Tem had texted me a couple that I wanted to ask. So on the slide showing the transitions that have already occurred, Greensboro has not yet made the transition. Are they in process of that, or what's the timeline there?
Good question. So Greensboro already an operating contract. When we took over Greensboro,
They didn't have to transition.
They didn't have to convert.
Okay. What are the safety metrics pre and post transition in communities that you've worked in? Any increase in the number of incidents, any decrease in the number of safety incidents that you've witnessed?
From my experience, whenever you make a transition from management contract to operating contract, using all the tools that we're going to use, we may see a spike in terms of number of events, because we track not only incidents, we track near misses. So we'll see a spike a little bit because we want to get a full picture, and then we work through every single one of them. But most of the time, the first year, you'll see those spikes and trying to really get data under control. And then the second year, you start getting things under control. Like Raleigh, for example, today, they won this award, but it's not easy. It wasn't easy. It's basically going through what's been done before, changing that culture, capturing everything, forcing everyone to report everything. So you'll see a spike, but it's not a spike because of the behavior or anything else. It's just a data collection process.
Great, thank you. Okay, let's just start down here with Councilmember Larson.
Couple quick questions. My understanding is there's no impact on the number of staff people that the city has in under this change. Are we reallocating resources, but no layoffs or any
Councilmember Larson, let me be clear, right? There will be no changes for city staff.
Right.
Now, I want to make that distinction because the current contractor that we have, they have employees that work for TransDev, and it is the intent of the contract to retain those subject to the onboarding process of the contractor. So the positions and the opportunity does exist to retain them, but it is subject to the new onboarding process. Did I misspeak? So there is opportunity, but it is subject to their
They'll
onboarding.
be transferred over to the new management.
That's correct.
So last question, how many people are you bringing to Winston-Salem under this change? How many new staffings to make this transference? How many people are coming here to execute on that?
Yeah, so our leadership team that showed, it's a total of 4 that we're bringing, but you have Bruce here who's already in the community. The 3 we're bringing outside of the community are Mike Rosson. He's currently lives in California. Reggie is here in the States, but not in the Winston-Salem area. And Brandy, the director of customer service and marketing, is from Colorado. So essentially 2 outside of the States.
2 or 3 people will be actually physically moving to Winston-Salem to manage this.
That's correct.
Thank you. Thank you. Good to know.
Councilmember Scipio.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Fansler, for all of this work. It's very comprehensive. It's almost impressive.
Almost.
Almost impressed.
I was impressed.
Refresh my memory. What did the FTA say was a no-no for us?
So good question, and I'll first say there was a team effort by a lot of really smart people, so thanks to my team. But FDA had some findings for our oversight practice, basically how we were overseeing some of the contract deliverables that we have with our current contract. And then overall, I think the biggest thing was the fact that we haven't gone out for procurement in almost 14 years. So that was a big thing. We haven't done a competitive process in some time.
So are they recommending that we put something like not just renewing a contract, but actually physically doing RFPs?
So that's a great question, Councilmember Scipio. We spent some time talking about, okay, we don't want to get in this space again, so what do we do? And so our guidance was basically, what does that term contract window look like where you're comfortable with what we do here? And we negotiated with them a little bit, and that's where we landed on a 5-year with a 2-option year. And our communication with FDA was that's well within compliance. They're comfortable there. And since you see how comprehensive this effort is, this is not a contract you want to do every 2 or 3 years. And so from that, DOT, the city, and I think FTA, we feel comfortable in that 5-year with a 2-option year window.
I had a question about the financials that were on about the next to the last slide. Mm-hmm. What's involved in the incentive payments column?
Yeah, so good question. So there are incentives for performance. Right now, we want to make sure that we have some performance measures that are like we can hold them to. So on-time performance, a lot of those things, we want to make sure that if they're meeting those and they can perform on that their contract rewards them for that. And so it's pretty much an industry practice where we have a contract that incentivizes on-time performance, incentivizes vehicles that are maintained properly, incentivizes where they have reporting that's FTA compliant. So making sure that this is a check and balance. They've given us something, and in return, we're going to incentivize them to keep giving it to us.
That's great. And one last question, or two questions. With this new way of running our transit, can we expect increased ridership?
No, certainly our hope is that when we have a system that's more reliable, where we have on-time performance that you can get on your phone. Right now, we all have been dealing with the fact that we don't have great AVL systems to track buses. We're going to be working with them, working with our systems to make sure we're rolling that out, we're managing that a little better. So let me answer that question by saying that we expect a far more reliable system, and in turn, we expect to continue to see our ridership grow.
Okay. And I got two more questions. Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Who's counting?
It seems like there's going to be a lot of change, and the current WISTA employees have the opportunity, if they can go through all of the vetting that the new company does, would be able to keep their jobs. So do we also expect a greater percent of retention of employees? Because I know that was a problem in the past.
I'm sure Ibrahima may have some statistic on how many they currently retain, and so do you want to comment on that?
Based on our experience, it's also, it's for our own interests to keep these folks.
Yes.
They have institutional knowledge, and there's also a law that protects all employees that are under the union, so we're required to basically retain all union employees. And so majority of them are union employees, so therefore majority of them will stay. When you talk about the vetting process, it's really drug and alcohol testing, the required by law type of process that we go through. So typically when you go through a transition, there will be some folks that are not going to transition with you. They just either retired or I'm done with this, those kind of things, but it's very minimal. Steve here just did Durham, and we were expecting, when we bid, you assume certain numbers, but it was higher than we expected, the people that stayed, so.
Great. And my final comment is that for the new company, Winston-Salem had the largest Black-owned public transportation system in the world, and that was the Safe Bus Company. It had a remarkable reputation, and as I think back, the buses weren't that great, but they ran on time, and they were always crowded, which speaks to the quality of the service, the image that they had, and I would hope at some point you can tap into that legacy in some kind of way, because it was very rich, and people of my generation who rode the bus have really interesting memories about riding the bus. So it's a wonderful legacy to inherit. And I know Worcester has sort of moved away from that, but I certainly hope you'll be able to bring some of that back in your service.
Councilmember Burke.
Thank you. I don't have any questions, just comments. This presentation has been outstanding, and I do believe that moving from the management contract to the operating contract is the plan that we need to move toward at this time. I'm very impressed with your service delivery model, the plan for taking care of your employees. That really hit home with me also. And then the experience that you have, your transition experience, is also very impressive. So I'm in support of it.
Thank you. Off the top of the bat, I just want to thank staff. I mean, I have some idea. I don't think any of us have a real idea of the time and effort that went into this project. This is a big lift. I mean, this is something that understandably wasn't done for some period of time just because of how daunting it is. But we've learned our lesson to not let it go that long in between so that it isn't as daunting, and we can still sort of stay in touch with it. I want to thank Ibrahim and his crew for the proposal they put together, top notch. I think this will pass, and we're going to be really happy to work with you. One thing that you didn't say, but you kind of said in your presentation, is you're about building culture within that community. And I think that's something that we haven't had as a positive culture. We've made some steps towards trying to improve that with our safety and recognizing that we need to treat our staff and our customers as if they were us, and do the right thing by them as well. So I was very, very happy to hear that focus. And that goes towards your comment about retaining staff and not having to retrain people and keeping the institutional knowledge there. The presence of your group within North Carolina is very encouraging to me. We do things differently in the South. So it's nice to have folks that are used to dealing with cultural things from North Carolina, from sort of in-house. So that's, I think, a very positive thing. And I think the thing that we need to keep in mind here overall is that bus ridership is numbers, but it's also people's lives and where they live and where they work. When you change a bus route, you upend people's lives, just really crazily. The other thing that I think has been a focus of some outside criticism of us and other bus systems is hopefully we can get away from our hub and spoke system as much as possible, move more to point, have less downtime for ridership in between, because that, again, it extends people's days. It makes life more difficult for the ridership. I know that Winston-Salem is one of the lesser densely populated cities in North Carolina of the big five, which means we're stretched out. It makes it harder to provide quality service to people compared to a more densely populated city. We need to do more to encourage development along bus lines. We need to do more about making sure that we don't change bus lines lightly, for the reasons I just went into. So all those things that I'm hearing and I've heard from staff in prior meetings have been very positive. So I'm really looking forward to this. We need to offer a better product. It's going to cost more. And I think the public needs to understand it's going to cost more. I think council will understand it. It's going to cost more. To me, the investment is well worth it. So thank you very much. And does this need a vote? We need to vote on this. Since we're probably having network issues still, let's go to a voice vote on this. Councilmember Larson.
Can I ask one question about timetables? What is the schedule on implementation?
Good question, Councilmember Larson. So the pending award at your first meeting in May, we will be working with the contractor to start their transition plan. Ultimately, their contract will start August the 1st. So August 1 is where it will be a go live where they'll have the full reins of the operational responsibility.
And the numbers will all be wrapped up in our budget discussions as we go forward.
That's right.
Thank you. All right, so do I have a motion?
Move for approval?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Very good. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Look forward to working hard with you here in the near future. Okay, next item.
Item G2, Bridge and Capital Projects Update.
Another inexpensive item. Mr. Huff?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Yes, this is an information item that was requested at the Committee of the Whole, where it was asked that staff bring back an update on our bridge process, what we have, what's in the queue, et cetera. So basically, we want to go through overview of the bridges in the city, how that inspection process works, what kind of issues we're seeing with our bridges when they're inspected right now, then kind of go into what we have in the queue as far as replacements, projects under design, show you some that have been recently done, and kind of what's moving forward. Then we'll briefly touch base on field operations staffing, and then kind of a brief update on other capital projects. So in our city, the city of Winston-Salem proper has 54 bridges that we have the ownership and maintenance responsibility for. And this does not include culverts, pipes, or other connected pieces of infrastructure. These are bridges proper. And our bridges vary in age dramatically, some being brand new, 100 on a scale from 0 to 100, and then some are 20s bridges that have wooden abutments and what we call functionally obsolete infrastructure. And we have various sizes of bridges, everything. So case in point, we run the gambit in our community. And how inspections work with these bridges, and I think the Francis Scott Key Bridge kind of pulled all this back together, something that drifts away from you, and when you see something like what happened in Baltimore, we start taking a look at that again. But basically, our bridges are inspected every 2 years, like we mentioned, with a rating of 0 to 100, 100 being a brand-new bridge, freshly installed. And what the city of Winston-Salem does is we contract with NCDOT, and they move forward with certified bridge inspectors under a very specific and regimented process. And those inspection reports yield very specific maintenance criteria, or they could yield significant findings that, like we see the photo to the right, where this is Old Greensboro Road Bridge, where we had to post weight limits on that bridge because of the infrastructure, the beams under that bridge. So we have to adhere to those findings in those inspection reports. And they could be more than weight limits. We could have to close that bridge if the issues are dire enough. So half of our bridges are inspected 1 year, flip-flop, do the other half the next year, and it's a continuous cycle. So some things that you would see during a bridge inspection: corrosion of the support beams under the bridge, spalling of concrete, spalling of the bridge decking. That's just the delamination of the concrete. If there's a wooden bridge, rot of the abutments or the timber decking. We also see drift in front of our bridges, where the mouth of the bridge is clogged, making it impassable for water, surges in storms, et cetera, like that. And in treatments, the wing walls, the concrete on the wing walls has failed, separated, and not deflecting flow into the bridge as it would need to. So some recent replacements. The West Lakeview Drive Bridge. This had timber decking, steel beams, and concrete abutments that were failing. This was constructed, the original bridge was constructed in 1964 and had a rating of 22.74. Pretty poor rating here. Had a replacement cost of $1.3 million approximately, and it was opened approximately the third quarter of last year. And thanks to our brethren in engineering for managing that project for us. So you can see what it looked like beforehand, the top picture on the right, with storms overflowing it, and then the post results there, where you've got new railing, concrete abutments, everything is fresh, and the site looks really good. Yes, ma'am, Councilmember Scipio.
It still floods.
That is a pre-picture right there on the top.
I know the top is, but the bottom is flooding, isn't it?
That's in a rain event. My apologies. I took these when I had the chance.
That's okay.
No, the bridge is not overtopping. It still is in the 100-year floodplain, but there's certain restrictions on the bridge. The main thing with this one is stability. That this bridge was, the superstructure, if you will, was failing on this one. And the designers had certain, this was in a valley. They had certain design restrictions that they had to adhere to. So moving this bridge out of the 100-year floodplain was not an option, but it doesn't surcharge like you see in the top right picture. But structurally, this bridge is totally different from what preceded it.
Councilmember Burke.
Thank you. Yes, Keith, I'm just noticing the rating of 22.74, and the bridges are inspected every 2 years.
Yes.
What was the rating 2 years earlier?
Yeah, this one kind of trended where it stayed in the 20s for a good period of time. Traffic counts on the Lakeview Drive Bridge were pretty low, too. Mm-hmm. This only services basically one neighborhood. So you'll see in the upcoming slides of the presentation, we've got traffic counts on some bridges that are in the 1,000, like Old Greensboro Road Bridge has a traffic count in the thousands versus this bridge was in the 100 range. But because of that rating, the sufficiency rating, it was one that the community felt we needed to act on as the city.
Thank you.
Top picture looks like my front yard a couple months back. All right, keep going.
I've seen that photo, Mr. Chairman. Okay, so next bridge, a recent replacement or semi-recent replacement. that Councilmember Burke is well aware of, the Novak Street Bridge. This had timber flooring and abutments. We had a closure date of May 20th of 2018. This bridge stayed closed for a long time, and it had a very poor sufficiency rating as well. So replacement cost of over $900,000 for that. And this one's been open to traffic for over a year. And Councilmember Burke had a very well-attended neighborhood meeting over this bridge where it actually occurred on the bridge, and the citizens, correct me if I'm wrong, were pleased with the result.
That is true. Thank you.
So some bridges that are currently under design. The First Street Bridge, basically you see the similar trend here where the concrete railing is damaged, the decking, the abutments are failing. 1960s bridge, 38 sufficiency rating. This replacement cost is significant, $5.7 million range. And this one has a lot of strings to it. Norfolk Southern's involved. There is extensive utility relocation with this, and several other complicating factors. One thing we want to draw the council's attention to, or the committee's attention to, is we've got a couple of projects that are proximate to each other. The next one that is on the list is the Hawthorne Road. This is actually a culvert, and we kind of back and forth on the definition between culvert and bridge based on abutment, span, et cetera, but this is a very significant structure on Hawthorne Road adjacent to First Street. This is in the design phase that we have 100% designs. It is failing. You can see the sewer line there that's bent, and the abutments there that are failing, causing the sinkholes. And this one is in the 100% design phase right now. We are acquiring easements for this. The work here, we will precede this replacement with a sewer line installation. And one thing that staff is navigating through right now is the traffic in the Atrium Health area, Cloverdale, Medical Center Boulevard, because the hospital's doing some work as well. Mm-hmm. So staff is working on that traffic management through this area and doing what we can to stagger the projects so there's not an overload on the road system through there. Just a brief slide on our priority maintenance items right now. This is the top 14, if you will. The purpose of this slide is to kind of get a flavor of the bridges that need maintenance and to give you a flavor of the cost for just maintenance of these bridges. So top 14, they're in pretty much every ward, and we're looking at $1.5 million for just maintenance, spa, decking, rails, et cetera, et cetera. So as you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, this is an expensive venture just to maintain these items. Moving on, this is our top 6 bridge replacements right now. Greensboro is at the head of that because of the condition of the bridge. Glade Street next, Valley Road, Sprague Street, Northwest Boulevard, and then followed up by Crafton. All these have elements where they're structurally deficient or functionally obsolete. So you've got roughly $15.4 million in your top 7 bridges.
Mr. Huff, and we have that money, right?
It's your call, ma'am.
Just write the check.
No, we do not. To let you know, we do not have all the funding for this. We are working on that now.
Thank you.
Shifting gears right quick, just to give an update on staffing. Field operations still, we are struggling to fill vacancies right now. Some of our work groups do have over 50% vacancy. Everything that you see in red is a vacant position for us right now. And positions that we have been able to hire are at the entry level, i.e. maintenance workers. We also have, apologize. So we have retirements of our senior folks that have announced retirements. So we are losing people with institutional knowledge and gaining entry-level folks. But the entry-level folks that we are getting on board, we're trying to get them in their CDLs and move them to have those credentials. And then one key position that we're down is a transportation engineer. So that really hurts us with the design of these large-scale capital projects.
And we're actively trying to steal people from other organizations, aren't we?
Always,
I hope.
always.
Ms. Self, go back to that last slide. I can't read it. On the very bottom, my far right, it has a whole row of red.
Yep.
Now, what division is
So
that?
that is your drainage crews on that particular side. So basically, we had 3 drainage crews that were operating independently before. Now, all of those staff have been combined into one crew for the entire city. So that's your staffing level right now for drainage.
All right, more good news?
Yeah. So to conclude, just a general update on capital projects that we've been working through. Underwood Drive culvert rehabilitation, that's complete. Griffith Road, that is complete. Councilmember Larson, Wachovia Street, that is now complete. We have finished that one up. Fanning Road, that was a very particular one that a pipe failed under the road and was single ingress egress. That is complete. Aubrey Court is complete. Patterson. Lura Road is a single way in and out. That is under construction. Old Salisbury Road, Councilmember Larson, that is pending a homeless encampment removal, but the contractor's ready to proceed as soon as that's removed. Bethabra Road is under design, and we are contracting with a entity right now to remove the woody vegetation. So that is suspected to go to construction this fall, or presumed to. Brookline and Dacian, that's an internal job. Road failure due to pipe, that's going to mobilize in May. Resurfacing we've talked about, that is under the procurement phase right now. And we have a job with the IQ folks, and they are currently removing vegetation around that pond at corner 52 and Salem Parkway. So I know that was a quick rundown, but be happy to entertain any questions.
A quick, timely rundown. Thank you very much. Questions from committee, starting with Councilor Larson.
That's always an interesting presentation, and I got a couple of questions, I suppose. One, I'm alarmed at the staffing issue that we're facing with this department and how shortage and what you're operating with, and what is the strategy on this? Is this a salary issue? Is this that people are not available? What is our problems here?
Yeah, it's a combination of all the above, Councilmember Larson. It's a salary thing. The industry is very competitive for these positions, these equipment operators. You have a lot of companies that utilize these type of folks, track-hoe operators, backhoe operators, paving expertise. It's a very popular field right now, and we are trying to be competitive in that.
Where are they coming out of? Where do we recruit out of here? Is there schools that we can go to subsidize these or something, provide us scholarships?
Anybody that we can, honestly. People that are wanting to leave the private sector that don't want to travel, they might get paid more, but they work in 5 different cities. Honestly, we're not selective.
Councilmember Larson, I'll add a little bit to what Keith offered. So I think salary is a piece of that, and as you're well aware, we're going through a common class study right now that we hope will give us some data to help better recruit and attract individuals into those positions. So I think that's piece one. I think piece two is the staff has also been working on a program to get training to our employees for CDL training. So if we bring somebody in who's a maintenance worker and who's interested in investing in themselves and getting some additional skills through the CDL training, we'd be glad to pay for that training so that they have some upward mobility and can hopefully fill some of these positions that require a CDL. So that's something we've spent a lot of time with the manager's assistants on here in the last 2 months to try to accelerate that process in hopes of being able to grow our talent from within.
That was sort of my direction I was going, is to go to the training sources for these schools that bring out the licensed, qualified people that we look for, and whether we have an opportunity to intervene in somewhere along the line with scholarships or something with a condition that they'll work for at least 3 to 5 years for us or something if we pay for the schooling. And I get on the front end, basically, of even before they're trained, but they're trained somewhere else, and then they come to us with a commitment, sort of like military does, for their
Yep. Or
recruitment. Yeah, recruitment. Well, congratulations on all of that, and thank you for all your work with the city, and I appreciate the work that you did with my old bridge at Wachovia.
Yes, sir.
I was going to ask you about if anybody looks at those occasionally also. We have some pedestrian bridges that are old highway bridges, and are those on any kind of inspection list or not?
The pedestrian bridges are not on the NCDOT inspection list. They're a different thing. They're looking at vehicular traffic on what we're talking about today.
Right. Well, we've got several, we are a city of remarkable bridges, and I hope that as we look toward replacing these bridges, we will look at enhancements and whatever to give them the quality of the bridges that we have elsewhere in the city, and that we have keep our unique character of this city with the bridges we have.
Yes, sir.
We got an amazing collection of bridges, don't we?
We do.
Yeah.
Councilmember Scipio.
One easy thing, I would like to see those 54 bridges and their individual ratings and where they are. Sometimes we don't even know what's ours and what's someone else's. So I would love to see that. I'm curious about the cost of bridge inspections. I think you said, if I heard you right, that we have state inspectors inspecting our bridges. Is that right?
So we have a agreement with NCDOT, and they contract inspectors for the entire state, and we are part of that process.
Do we pay for it, or do?
We do not pay for the inspectors directly. It's through an agreement with NCDOT.
But we budget money with that somehow.
Do you know the process for reimbursement of DOT through the bridge inspection process? I do not right offhand. Okay. Councilmember Scipio, I do not know how that money gets to the DOT providing that service right now, but we can investigate that and get that back to you.
But the thing that is really important for me is that the training for inspections is really at NCDOT, and we aren't doing anything in-house to have our own inspectors.
No, the bridge inspection process is a very regimented, certified process, and it has to be sealed by a licensed professional engineer from the state of North Carolina. So it is a very regimented process, and there's a couple of companies that are really niche in the bridge inspection process. So you're going to be very versed in this process when you get a contract from NCDOT to do this.
Great, thank you.
Councilmember Burke.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. Councilmember Larson really touched on the issue that is of concern to me, and that's staffing. So let me pay you a compliment. You all, being as short-staffed as you are, you do an outstanding job, so thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
We just have to find ways to get these positions staffed, and I don't know what it's going to take. Is it going to take some kind of creative video where we encourage people to come to work in this department, make it look exciting? And I don't know, but we've got to do something. But you all are doing a great job with a little. Thank you.
Mr. Huff, as usual, thank you for a very thorough presentation. Even if it's information we really don't like to see, we need to see it. The timeliness of it is great too. I mean, with the Key Bridge, people are going to be more concerned than usual about the condition of their bridge, and this is something we can push out to the public. I just want to remind council that we are in a mode of fixing things in order of priority on our lists, and the less we add to that list, unless it is a real emergency, the more our staff can get done with the limited resources they have. So let's all be mindful of that if we could. So Keith, thank you again. I guess we're getting this once a quarter, a couple times a year update.
Pleasure.
Would be good to put on a sort of rotation just to make us aware.
Yes, sir.
All right, very good. If there's nothing else.
Should I ask maybe the city manager or somebody else, do we have any hope for getting federal funds based on the Rebuild America programs that's going on right now to help us with our bridges? These are expensive projects, and I didn't know if we would qualify for any of those kinds of funding.
I can tell you, Councilmember, we are looking under every rock for every federal dollar, state dollar that we can get for roads. Primarily, there is federal highway funds, but that's generally for federal projects, federal roads. So mostly it's working with NCDOT on looking for funds to help with roads in the community. And we have a very good relationship with NCDOT, and our folks meet with them on a regular basis, I think weekly, if not more often, to talk through those projects, to talk about what the sustained needs we are, and to look at what revenue sources we might be able to attack to get some of those funds. So absolutely, yes, sir, we're looking for those.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where we're going to get the millions of dollars that are going to be required to keep our bridges safe.
And so is every other community in the country, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. That's a major problem for the U.S.
Thank you for your work on that.
Our lobbyist in D.C. always keeps her ear to the ground as well, and also is in contact with our congressional representatives. Year to year, the process of earmarking or being able to sort of line item things out to individual communities changes. This year, we're not sure if that's going to be possible or not. Congresswoman Manning was able to get us a nice earmark to fix Runnymede Park. So those kind of things can happen, but you have to be aware of them. You have to ask for them, which I think our people do. So
We need advocacy at the state level.
Yeah, so several of us are on the TAC. And John, you sit in on those meetings too. So when there's money's made available there, we always have our hand out and are first in line to get them. So our voices are heard. Whether or not they're responded to is another question. So anything further? If not, thank you very much. We're adjourned.